So this past week, it's been amazing to watch the reaction to the Facebook IPO. You can't pop up your computer screen or pick up a newspaper without a story about it. And it makes you really wonder about how businesses are evaluated on their value. A lot of debate has been going on around what creates value within a company. Is it the growth? Is it the business model? Is it its stock price? Many people are now starting to say it goes beyond just the financial numbers. It actually goes to things that are inside the company, like innovation, brand, and people. Warren Buffett will not acquire a company based on its stock price or based on its revenue. He will acquire a company based on the people that are leading it. When you think about the questions that pertain to a company, how do you measure its success? How do you determine its value? These same questions apply to all of us as leaders. Over the last year and a half, I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to interview close to 100 senior executives and CEOs. And I've asked them a variety of questions, and I could talk to you for hours about the things we've discussed. But I want to share just a few things with you tonight. I did talk with them a lot about what it meant in their life to be successful, one as a leader, and then two as a person. As you can imagine, the answers came out. Many of them were things that we would suspect. Salary, title, status. Then it starts going a little bit deeper. Job satisfaction, accomplishing our goals, helping other people, helping my company be better, and helping other people be better. When I asked them, though, the question of what value they were creating as leaders, in most cases, I got a pause and a thoughtful look. And let me think about this for a little while. The answers were interesting. I also asked them the question, as we think about going forward in the next decade, what is it that leaders should be doing, truly doing, to create value? If you think back to the fall of 2008, this question is so important from that time period. We had the worst economic recession that the world has ever seen. We had companies folding. We had leadership crisis. We had ethics crisis. And we need people who are leading companies in a different way. We need people who are thinking about the value they're creating as leaders. I'm going to share with you just 6 of the things that all of these executives have said are things that we should be thinking about in how we create value as leaders. First and foremost, as you can imagine, all of these senior executives talked about that you have to lead with excellence. Stories came out from senior executives at investment banking firms about setting up standards of accountability, making sure that results were achieved, and that no excuses were used. But it becomes more poignant when you start thinking about how this is actually done within companies. I had some wonderful conversations with Andy Taylor, the chairman and CEO of Enterprise Holdings. As you know, Enterprise is a leading rental car company here in the United States and actually around the world. They have been ranked #1 in customer satisfaction for the last 10 years. Andy did it because he expected and asked for excellence. And he held the standard with his employees and his managers. He shares the story that he's had leaders of stores who have sales that are off the charts, but their customer satisfaction scores were below standard. They didn't get promoted. He held them to the standard of excellence. To achieve value as a leader in the next decade or so, we all have to strive to lead with excellence. The second thing that came out, and this relates a lot to the crisis that occurred in 2008, many of these executives I spoke with said we forgot this one. To achieve value as a leader, we have to lead with others in mind. We have to lead with others in mind. In a conversation with Sally Jewell, the CEO of REI, that's a company that sets a benchmark for leading with their community and the environment in mind. All of their systems, all of their practices are set up so that they're thinking about what they do and how it has an impact on the community and the environment. DaVita, a local company here in town, has set up the concept and the culture of a village because they said, you know what, we can't care for kidney dialysis patients if we don't care for each other. So the CEO, Kent Thiry, is actually called the mayor of the village, and everybody thinks about what it means to be a part of that. When you're in a village, you care for and you think about the people who are a part of your community. They've had amazing results, but that wasn't the reason they did it. They did it because they were leading with other people in mind. The third thing that came out very clearly, is that we have to think about creating value by leading through the lens of change. In the fall of 2008, I received an unprecedented number of calls from executives and companies that I had worked with around the country. And they said, we don't know what to do. It's not business as usual. The things that I've been doing for the last 4 years aren't working any longer. We can think about the next 10 to 15 years, and I can guarantee it's not going to be business as usual. We have to think constantly about change. I tell executives that I work with, if you don't have on your daily to-do list leading change as a subcategory, you're not doing your job as a leader. The best example of this came from listening to Howard Schultz, the chairman and CEO of Starbucks. As you know, he took over the company at its very young age, and he grew it into a mega coffee brand. His idea at the time was to be the best barista in the world. After a while, when the company was extremely successful, he stepped out as CEO and became chairman. The company started diversifying its product lines, started diversifying its concepts, and getting into other businesses. And right about the time of 2008, the stock started crashing. Howard, still being on the board, started running some analysis, and he had some pretty grim news. In 6 months, if they did not change the way that they operated their business, they would be out of business. He shared this with the board, and he came back on as CEO. He decided that it was going to take a lot of courage and a lot of risk to make some significant changes to bring back the Starbucks that he once knew. He said, we lost our way, we lost our core purpose, and now it's time to engage in dramatic change. And to do that, we have to think differently. To create value for our company, for our customers, and for our employees, we have to think differently. As you know, probably around 2008, we had some competitors flying in the door. McDonald's was coming in with McCafe, less expensive mochas and cappuccinos, so they were putting a lot of pressure on Starbucks. Howard decided to do a couple of things that were unprecedented. He said, to get back to our roots, we're going to shut down every single store at the same time on the same day and train every single one of our employees on how to be a good barista and what it means to create the Starbucks experience. The media went crazy. Schultz has lost his mind. McDonald's is winning. The competition is coming in. On the day that they actually shut it down, the competition took advantage of it. They offered discounts. They offered sales. They offered promotions. He also brought his entire senior leadership team down to New Orleans. And he said, if you don't want to change for the company, then change for yourself, because we won't be here if we don't do things differently. There's a quote by Albert Einstein that really depicts the value that leaders have to create today around change. He says, you can't solve problems using the same kind of thinking that you used when you created them. A fourth area that a lot of these executives talked about, and one that they admitted to not doing very well, was to create value going forward, we have to lead with foresight. They all wish they had had a crystal ball. But the reality is the data were there. The signs were there that the market was going to crash in the fall of '08. There were people shorting the market on these indicators. What didn't happen was much of our leadership didn't anticipate or consider or have the foresight to think about what the trends meant for their business. Probably one of the most interesting, humbling, and hard stories to listen to was that of John Buxbaum. He was the former chairman and CEO of General Growth Properties. It was the second largest retail operating company in the United States. They had a very, very large position in shopping malls around the country. They had over-leveraged their debt. In the fall of '08, $200 million worth of loans came due. $200 million of loans came due in the fall of '08. To back up a little bit, in the May of '08, their stock was trading at $48 a share. They were thinking, when they had taken out all of these loans at the same time, that they would simply do what? Refinance. In the fall of '08, nobody was refinancing. They couldn't get anyone to refinance their loans. They were a $27 billion company with $26 billion of debt. Nobody was willing to take that on. By February of '09, their stock was trading at 34 cents a share. John, whose grandfather had founded the company, whose father had then become CEO, who then had passed it on to John, was ousted as both chairman and CEO, and the company was taken over by a different person. In talking with John about what happened, how could you not have seen? How could you not have thought? He said, that was my number one mistake, was I didn't think about what the future was going to hold. We had had so much success over the past 3 to 4 years that I really didn't think around the corner. He lost his family's company. To lead with value going forward, we have to lead with foresight. All of the executives also mentioned that to lead with value today, you have to lead with resilience and optimism. We think about a couple of people lately that have been models of resilience in our lives. Jeremy Lin, the breakout NBA star, who was waived by the NBA several times and then came back to be a hero this past season. All of us were rallying for him because he had such resilience and optimism from the rejection. Samantha Garvey, the young woman who won the major science competition while she was homeless at 17 years old. we think about how those characteristics apply in business today. There is not a leader that I have met that hasn't made a mistake, hasn't experienced a hardship, hasn't experienced a setback, hasn't experienced a problem that they almost think is unsolvable. But really, to move this country and this world forward, we need leaders who are resilient and optimistic. Bill Gates comes to mind. He is somebody who won't take no for an answer. There is not a problem that is too big for that man to tackle or try to solve. It also means that you have to have a lot of courage. You have to have a lot of courage. There are two people that I talked with that really exhibit this, in my opinion. One was Sean Menke. You may know Sean. He lives here in Denver. He was the former CEO of Frontier Airlines. You can recall Frontier went through some hard times, certainly when 9/11 occurred, and we talked a lot about that and the resilience and optimism associated with that. But then he also described an experience in 2008. You see, business was bad. In the way that they run their contracts, they basically, the people that they had a contract with for their ticket sales, if you bought a $100 ticket, then they would be paid $60 when you bought the ticket, and then $40 when you flew. There was a clause in that contract that their contract provider decided to take up on. And it basically was, you don't receive, Frontier did not receive any of the ticket money until you flew. If you know anything about airline business, they run on a very short cash position. Sean ran the numbers, and he knew that within 30 days, they would be out of cash. He had one choice. On a Wednesday, he worked with his board and decided to go into bankruptcy because all contracts stay the way they are when you go into bankruptcy. By Monday, they had moved the company into bankruptcy. It was hard, it was grueling, it was difficult, it took a lot of courage, it took a lot of patience, and it certainly took a lot of optimism to think this might be a solution. The other interview that I had was with one of my former bosses, the president of the University of Georgia. And if you know anything about the South, you know football is king. And if you know anything about SEC football, you don't mess with it. When I was there, Mike Adams actually made a very courageous decision to not renew the contract of the beloved athletic director. And the athletic director decided to go to the media. And it created a firestorm. A firestorm. Now, Mike had made that decision for a lot of good reasons. Quality. It was time to get some fresh insight into the football program and into the other athletics at the university. But the fallout was remarkable. Some historical things happened that I've not seen happen at any other university in my lifetime. Billboards went up around Atlanta, "Fire Mike Adams." A petition with 36,000 people signing it, "Fire Mike Adams." The foundation, where all the donations from alums is housed, broke off from the University of Georgia. Talk about resilience. The conversation that I had with Mike was incredible. How did you survive that as a person? How did you survive that as a leader? And they decided, and he talked a lot about the fact that he had made a good quality decision that was based on excellence. And that he also had some strong support, not only from his colleagues, but from his family and friends, and from the people that he reported to. All of us are going to be faced with challenges. And again, what all of these executives said is what sets the leaders that are creating value is how you handle the challenges that you're faced with. The last point I want to share with you about the value that they talked about creating is one that's very near and dear to my heart at the University of Denver and the Daniels College of Business. in that every single executive said, we need people who are going to lead with integrity. I picked up an article the other day, and the headline was, 10 CEOs go from the boardroom to the cell block. 10 CEOs go from the boardroom to the cell block. You see, all of those CEOs forgot the value that they were creating, other than it being perhaps personal wealth or personal gain. We probably, all of us, know people that were affected by the Bernie Madoff scandal. But the story that's the most poignant for me personally is one of a student that I had back at the University of Georgia. Brian was a student in our executive MBA program, and he had aspirations to go on to be a president of a hospital. Seems like a noble, laudable goal. But somewhere Brian got lost along the way, and he focused only on external factors of success: promotion, title, money. Brian was caught cheating in the executive MBA program. He suffered the consequences, retook the class, and made his way out. Then he was basically sabotaging one of his colleagues so that he could get her part of her job, and he was successful and his title got bigger. And then he was caught having embezzled funds from the hospital. Brian was later found in his garage, dead, having shot himself, and leaving behind his wife and his 2 children. Brian lost sight of the value that he was creating, not only for his company, but for his colleagues, for his classmates, and most importantly, for his family. There's a nice quote that I always like to have people keep in mind, and that's, when all honor is lost, what do you have left? So I want to provide a challenge for you for tomorrow morning. When you pull up your computer screen, instead of thinking about what the Facebook stock price is going to be for the day, why don't you think about what your stock price is? And ask yourself, what value am I creating today and tomorrow for my colleagues, for my company, for my community, and for my family? My guess is that you'll start doing a few things differently. It's a question to keep in mind as you move throughout your life, because at the end of the day, success is not measured by title, by promotions, by salary. It's measured by the value that you create for yourself and for other people. I want to give my heartfelt thanks to the fabulous women that have won this award, because they're not only women to watch, but they're women who are truly creating value. Thank you very much.